And I leaned over to Phil and I said, Phil, that's when you know you really made it, you've hit it big, when you've got the son of a United States Senator caddying for you, and it's 107 degrees, heat, whatever. And Phil Ivey says, no, Nolan, you know you've made it big when you've got the senator caddying for you.
Phil Ivey is one of the best-known names in the poker world, and according to many of his peers, one of the best all-around poker players alive. The member of the prestigious Poker Hall of Fame, owner of 10 WSOP bracelets, and winner of countless rewards and accolades, Ivey has pretty much achieved everything one can hope to achieve in poker. Phil Ivey has lived a colorful and exciting life, and he's been an inspiration for many aspiring young pros. Whether he's playing in the nosebleed Texas Hold'em cash games or betting fortunes at the baccarat tables, he's a presence that's impossible to ignore. Like many other successful players, Phil had to fight his way to the top, and fight he did. Overcoming adversities and with his eyes always fixed on the top prize, he managed to build a poker career that very few people can ever hope to match. Phil Ivey was born in 1977 in California, but his family moved to Atlantic City not long after. This decision probably had a huge impact on Phil's future, as he found himself in one of the gambling centers of the U.S., surrounded by all the things that would later shape his life and his career.
Well, I first met Phil Ivey in the mid to later 1990s. I used to go to Atlantic City, New Jersey every weekend, and the Taj Mahal was the place. That's the place in Atlantic City. That was really the place on the East Coast, that and Foxwoods. And there was this young African-American player who really stood out, because essentially Atlantic City and the Taj Mahal, you had a lot of middle-aged to older white men, maybe a few women, what have you.
Ivey fell in love with card games at a very young age. His grandfather taught him how to play five-card stud, a popular game at the time, when Phil was just 8 years old. The two spent countless hours playing the game, and it quickly became obvious the kid had a natural talent for poker. Shortly after learning how to play, Ivey started coming up with his own strategies and ideas, and his grandfather was the first to notice this boy had a hidden talent. As Ivey grew up, so did his love for poker. Being in Atlantic City, he was surrounded by casinos and card rooms, but he would have to wait till he turned 21 before he'd be legally allowed to enter these. For Phil, that was too long of a wait. When he was 17, Ivey acquired a fake ID and started using it to enter various Atlantic City casinos to play in real money poker games. He spent most of his waking hours at the tables, earning him the first of his many nicknames. Locals and poker room managers started calling him No Home Jerome, as he was always inside the casinos, and the name on his ID was Jerome Graham.
Well, we knew Phil way back when he was playing in Atlantic City, when he was playing in 17, and of course he was playing under a fictitious name.
Whether his ID was really that good, or room managers recognized the passion in Ivey and didn't want to bother him, is a question that will remain unanswered. Phil was allowed access to almost all the games in the city, honing his skills and gradually building his bankroll. Although he was naturally talented, Phil had some leaks in his game during these early years. He still had a lot to learn on his path to greatness, but even back then, those who knew him were certain that Ivey would go on to achieve great things in poker. Despite his love for poker, Phil Ivey had to wait to turn 21 to take up poker seriously. While he could play in local cash games and smaller tournaments with his fake ID, he knew that this wouldn't fly if he happened to win a major event. When he finally became of age, Ivey was ready to spread his wings and take on the poker world. As luck would have it, he didn't have to do it alone. He found mentors in Barry Greenstein and Daniel Negreanu, two already established players who recognized the raw potential in Ivey and took him under their wing. With their assistance, Phil was able to continue improving his game and fix some of his biggest leaks. The two helped him shape up his strategy and tame his aggression a little bit, paving the way for Ivey's future success. The first of many notable scores for Phil Ivey came during the 2000 World Series of Poker. He managed to take down a pot limit Omaha event, earning his very first WSOP bracelet and booking his first official six-figure score. In the years to follow, Phil continued to be very active on the circuit, putting in as many hours at the table as humanly possible. This helped him to not just build his bankroll, but also to gain the much-needed experience. One tournament after another, he was learning more and more about the game and becoming a bigger and bigger threat for his opponents across the felt. During this initial period, Ivey also perfected his trademark stare, which made many other players uncomfortable.
I think he just intimidates everyone into playing unbelievably bad against him. He just stares at you and you make the wrong play.
Being stared down by Phil Ivey wasn't a pleasant feeling, especially as the word got out that he was the real deal. And it did not take long for the word to get out. Ivey's results spoke for themselves, and it wasn't long before everyone was aware that this kid was ready to take the poker world by storm. If anyone had any doubts about Ivey's talents, those were quickly dismissed in 2002. That year, the young gun came to the annual World Series of Poker in Las Vegas ready to play his heart out and leave his mark. By the end of the summer, Phil won 3 bracelets, all in non-hold'em events. 2 bracelets came from 7-card stud tournaments, while 1 was won in a mixed game event. It became clear that Ivey was a force to be reckoned with at the tables despite his young age. Combining his passion for the game with his natural talent and desire to learn, Phil was making serious waves in the poker scene. In the years to come, his old nickname, No Home Jerome, was substituted by a different, much more flattering one, the Tiger Woods of poker, acknowledging Ivey as one of the best all-around poker players that has ever lived. He went on to win 6 more WSOP bracelets in the next decade, achieving a feat that very few poker players can boast. But it wasn't just the World Series where Phil was a dominant force. High roller tournaments, nosebleed cash games, you name it, Phil won it. Regardless of what game he was playing and what his opponents were doing, Ivey was never an underdog.
So I limped with 5-6, he raised, I called, still with the intention of at some point winning the hand, and the flop came Jack-Jack-7. I checked, he bet, I raised, he re-raised. Every single person in the room who knew me was absolutely convinced that I had the goods. So when he re-raised, I re-raised again, he re-raised again, I re-raised again. I mean, after some time thinking and looking at me, during which time I was the most nervous I've ever been in my life, I have to say. I had sweat dripping down. Literally, I was like, it was literally like a scared rabbit in headlights. And then he moved all in. Obviously, I folded because I had 6 high, and he did that with queen high, which was a quite amazing play by him.
As Ivey kept piling on titles and big wins, he caught the eye of TV producers and quickly became a regular staple on shows like High Stakes Poker and Poker After Dark. Unlike some others, most notably his friend and mentor Daniel Negreanu, Phil has never been what you would call an entertainer. Usually silent and collected, Ivey has always focused on the cards and his opponents more than anything else. But he was still great for TV. Fans love seeing No Home Jerome in action. His fearless moves, crazy bluffs, and soul reads that would often stun his opponents and viewers at home more than made up for the lack of banter. Plus, when Ivey decided to talk, everybody listened intently, as you could be certain he was about to share some crazy story that he just couldn't keep to himself. In addition to many bracelets, trophies, and accolades, Tiger Woods of poker accumulated impressive winnings during his poker career. Phil Ivey's net worth, according to his Hendon Mob page, is over $31 million, and that's just counting live tournament winnings. Ivey's had many notable results over the years, but his 2 biggest cashes came from the Aussie Million Super High Roller events, featuring a staggering buy-in of $250,000. Ivey's had a number of 7-figure cashes during his career, but the one from 2009 was rather bittersweet. In that year, No Home Jerome made it all the way to the final table of the World Series of Poker main event. Ivey was just a few poker hands away from seizing the most coveted bracelet in all of poker, but it was not meant to be. Phil ended up busting in 7th place for $1.4 million, and it was the young Joe Cotta who went on to claim the victory and the $8.5 million prize that came with it. This was Ivey's best shot at the main event. He was also in contention in 2003, but that year he was stopped by none other than Chris Moneymaker, the man who helped kickstart the poker boom. That hand against Moneymaker is probably etched in Ivey's memory, as it was a tough bad beat on the river. But when talking about Phil Ivey's net worth, there's more to consider than just live tournaments. First of all, he's been a regular in some of the highest stakes cash games in the world. Phil played for insane amounts in Las Vegas, Monte Carlo, Macau, London, and anywhere else where there was a game going.
Like Top Dog, Phil Ivey, Jungle Man, because of all the players they go to Macau and play the cash game. I know them and play tournament everywhere. Then very close to them many years already.
No one can say for sure how much money he won over the years, but it's pretty safe to guess that he is well in the black. And if rumors are true in some of those games, a single pot can sometimes reach 10% or 20% of Phil Ivey's net worth, at least the official number. Finally, it's impossible to disregard Ivey's online career. During his days as a Full Tilt Team Pro member, Phil was a regular in online high-stakes matches, playing against the likes of Tom Dwan, Patrick Antonius, Victor Solder-One Blum, and others. According to Hendon Mob, Ivey made over $19 million playing on Full Tilt between 2007 and 2011. So with that number, and his live tournament winnings, it seems that Phil Ivey's net worth is closer to $50 million. And that's just the stuff the general public knows about. Despite all the interest from the public, Ivey has never been the one to share much information about his private life. It's safe to assume he has certain business and investments that go beyond poker and beyond gambling. Ivey has always kept his private life as far away as possible from the limelight. For someone who's been around for so long and achieved so much, there are surprisingly few details about his life away from the felt. He currently resides in Las Vegas, Nevada, and he is a big basketball fan. Ivey also enjoys playing golf, and he even participated in the inaugural World Series of Golf. He used to be married to his high school sweetheart. The two met and fell in love long before Phil became famous and got married in 2002 in Las Vegas. The marriage lasted for 7 years, but in 2009, the couple filed for divorce. According to the limited information on the topic, it wasn't the cleanest of divorces, as the entire matter took several years to wrap up, and Ivey ended up paying a handsome sum. But it's all in his past now. Although Ivey has already accomplished almost everything there is to accomplish in poker, he's not the kind of guy to give up or retire.
Back in Atlantic City in those days, it was like, who is this kid? And a lot of people knew at that time, what is this guy going to be?
He has many more years ahead of him, and with his skills and talents, it's likely we'll see much more from No Home Jerome in years to come.